Hi everyone, this is Frenchie, your book club hostess, and I'm back. And you are too, because you're watching. Before we get started, I just wanted to officially welcome all our newest members of our Princess Book Club Instagram page. We had a big surge recently, and we're very excited. And actually, this morning, we've managed to reach the 500 followers milestone, which is huge. I know, it's exciting. Now, this month, we have been reading The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. And I really hope that you enjoyed the book just as much as I did. It was a fabulous way for us to kind of forget a little bit about the gloom and doom of our everyday lives. I'm stuck at home, it's starting to rain again. So I hope you really enjoyed it. What we've done on our Instagram page is we tried to explore the henna artist world a little bit more, and we posted some content about the caste system, for instance, or we talked about henna as a form of art. We also posted some recipes, and I even got one of my friends from Goa, who's a bartender on ships, to show you how to make a real Indian chai latte. Now, I would have done it myself, but I'm allergic to milk, so no thank you. Anyway, I wanted to thank you all for your participation and your engagement, and also for sending the questions for today's interview. So, of course, that's what we're here for. So I think it's time to introduce to you New York Times bestseller and author of The Henna Artist. It's Alka Joshi.
Hi there. Thanks so much for including me in today's talk, Frenchie. I'm excited to hear what readers want to talk about The Henna Artist.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here and taking the time as well. I know you're busy, so thank you. Now, tell us first, where do you live?
I live on the Northern California coast, right along the water, in between Monterey and Pebble Beach. So it's really beautiful out here. The weather is always temperate, and it's wonderful weather. We go out for walks all the time. We take our dogs walking. We go biking. We swim. It's a beautiful place.
Very active. Oh, you're so lucky. I'm on the other coast, so hello from afar. And how's quarantine been for you?
Not that much different from my real life. Because because as you know, as a writer, you spend a lot of time alone anyway. You spend a lot of time in front of your computer. You spend a lot of time in your imagination. Yeah. So many times when I'm composing a scene, or I'm thinking about dialogue, or I'm thinking about the story, I'm actually out walking anyway. I'm out walking, or I'm swimming, or something. I'm doing something else while I am letting it all process in my head. And now with quarantine, it's just made it that much more normal for me to be inside my head all the time.
Now, I hear that it took you 9 years to actually complete and publish the book, and you were all ready for this big promotional tour, and the pandemic happened, right?
Yes, exactly. My book was due to be released on March the 3rd, and HarperCollins had done an amazing job getting the book into the bookstores, on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, all these places. And then the pandemic hits, and now all the bookstores close. All the libraries closed down, so people can't even access it at the library. And then Amazon starts delivering only essential supplies.
Right. Oh gosh.
I don't know why nobody considers books essential supplies. Hello.
I would say, right? we need to strike.
Yeah. But actually, Frenchie, it worked out to be a really good thing for the publishers and for bookstores, because guess what? During the pandemic, when we couldn't go out anywhere, we got a chance to read, and book sales really went up. Audio sales went up, e-sales went up, everything went up.
Yeah, no, I agree. For me, when I was on lockdown in France, I probably read 25 books in 1 month. So it saved me from just getting crazy, or crazier than I am.
Yeah.
Now, what we've done is we've asked our guests and our readers from the Instagram page to send their questions to you in advance. So what I'll be doing is I'll be reading them out to you. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So I think we should get started. Actually, the first question will be mine because I just wanted to kind of get into the mood and set up an introduction for it. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about your upbringing. You were born in India, but immigrated with your family to the USA when you were just a kid. Can you tell us what your family's reasons to move over to America?
My father wanted to get a doctorate in civil engineering, and he had a particular kind of research he wanted to do. I think he was one of the world's first environmental engineers. There was research being done in Germany and in the United States at two different universities, and he applied to both. He got into both, and in the doctoral program at Iowa State University, he had a free ride. So that's what he decided. That's where he decided to go. So I was 9, my older brother was 11, my younger brother was 8. So we come here to the United States, and we were in a small town called Ames, Iowa, which is where the university is located. And we went from being kids that were, like every other kid in an Indian school to suddenly being the other kids, the immigrant kids in the schools that we were in. And, people were very curious about us. Where did we get our brown skin? Were we tanning a lot? People were asking us questions like, why did we, if we're from India, what tribe were we from?
Wow.
Yeah, and they were only familiar with, the native Indians and, or, the Native Americans. And so I think, it was an interesting wake-up call for us to realize that there are people in the world who actually knew less about India than we knew about them.
Yeah, that's true. You spoke English from being in India, did you? Yeah.
Yes, and most Indians do. We start learning English at a very young age. I was in preparatory 1, preparatory 2, which is the equivalent of our kindergarten. And I was learning to speak English even back then. In fact, by the time we were coming here, I had been in school so that we were taught in English all the way through. We only had 1 hour of Hindi, grammar and punctuation, in the same way that here you have an English course, every day you have like 1 hour of English instruction. So we had 1 hour of Hindi instruction. Wow.
Did your dad ever get that doctorate?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And then we found ourselves in this unique position of not being able to go back to India because we didn't have any money, because Dad had not been working for 3 years. And so we actually ran out of money. And then there was a glut of engineers the year that he graduated in 1971. So now suddenly we were in this position of, or my dad and my parents were, where they had to feed the family and they didn't have any money to feed the family with. So Dad ended up selling a lot of my mother's wedding jewelry at that time.
Oh, wow.
Just so we could stay afloat. And as you know, that made it into the book.
That's the story. Yeah, at the beginning, of course. Oh, wow. That's actually inspired by, what did your dad say when you read that passage in your book? Did he say anything?
Really, really nothing. But, my mother, I do know, never forgave him for that. I mean, there wasn't anything that we could do about it because, the kids had to be fed and we had to have books for school and we had to have school clothes. But I think that she always resented a little bit having lost her sort of retirement fund. That's what a woman's wedding jewelry is all about in India. It's her retirement fund.
I'm going to move on to the second question. That's from Sarah from Virginia. She says, in your author's note, you said that you wrote this novel for your mother and reimagine her existence as Lakshmi, who creates a life of her own. Would you say your mother was a feminist? And what are the most important teachings that she's passed on to you?
I think my mother was a feminist from very early on. There's a story that my father tells when I must have been about 4 years old, and my grandmother was visiting us. This is back in India. My mother noticed that my grandmother was putting more food onto my brother's plates than she was on mine. And my mother asked her, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, they're boys. They need more." And my mother said, "Not in my house. In my house, my girl gets treated the same as my boys." And so I think my mother was a feminist from way back when, even though that wasn't a part of the tradition that she grew up in. In India, you know, often boys are prized much more than girls. And oftentimes, you know, the boy gets all of the attention and the money. If there is only a limited amount of money in the family to send somebody to school, the boy will get to go, but not the girl. And then I think what happened is that when we came here to the United States, I think my mother really became much more of a feminist, because she was able to see that women here had a voice, that children had a voice, that she could raise me very differently, that I could have a voice. And so she always told me, you know, you will get to marry whomever you want. You will get to have whatever career you want. I will never interfere in your life. And she never did. So what I wanted to do in this book was give her that freedom in fiction that she didn't really have in her real life. You know, she had to get married at 18. Her father took her out of college and said, we have arranged a marriage for you with, you know, my father. And then immediately thereafter, because there's no birth control, she started having kids. She's got, you know, 3 kids in 4 years, and her life was just never her own. Her life was always devoted to her husband or to her children or to the house. And she never got to make the major decisions that I think really determine a woman's destiny. So I think it was really crucial for me to write this for her, both as a way of giving my mother independence in a fictional life, but also as a way for me to give back to her everything that she gave to me growing up.
Yeah. Your mom knew that you were writing this book about her, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, many of the scenes that I wrote while we were in India visiting, she and I were together, and we visited her old school. We spoke to the headmistress there. We went to the Jaipur Palace, and she told me about the time that she had an audience with the young Maharani. We also went to the Hawa Mahal, where all of the ladies of the court look out, you know, from behind the screen, because they're not allowed to go out in public and show their faces.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, she told me a lot about her time, and I asked her a lot about what she liked to read, what she liked to eat, who her friends were as she was growing up. The same thing I also asked of my dad. So he also, you know, gave me a lot of information about India at the time in the 1950s. And then, of course, I was born in the 1950s, so I remember a lot of that growing up, and we were there until 1967. Yeah, you know, I think that spending that time with my mother was so special, because it was a time when I got to know her as a girl. And I don't think, you know, we don't often have the opportunity to ask our mothers those kind of questions, like, you know, what was life like for you as a girl? What, you know, what was important to you back when? So that I think led us to a better, like a much closer relationship. And I was able to imbue a lot of the Henna Artist with her opinions and her ideas and her life. So it made it more personal for me to write this story.
I guess what we can learn from this interview so far is, maybe for all our viewers out there, if your parents are still around, maybe take the time to try and ask them about who they are as an individual, and not just as your parents.
Oh, Frenchie, I think that is so important. Yeah. I think while your parents are still alive, or maybe your aunts are still alive, or uncles, or whoever, you know, do a little home interview with them and record it. And
do homework, people. Do your homework.
Yeah.
Great. Now what we're going to do, we're going to move on to another question. But this one is a very special guest. I would say she's one of our top fans of the page. She's always interacting a lot, and we love her feedback. So she actually wanted to record the question and ask her herself. So if you don't mind, we're going to just watch a little video.
Lovely.
Okay, so I'm going to pass the virtual microphone to Alice.
Hi, I'm Alice from Colorado. I think The Henna Artist is a wonderful book. I have never been to India, and my question for Alka is this. I think the story gives us a pretty good idea of Indian cultures, traditions, roles, tastes, and architecture in the 1950s. What would you say are the differences to nowadays? Thank you.
What an excellent question. So much of India is very much like the first line of the Henna Artist. Independence changed everything. Independence changed nothing. There are so many things about India that are exactly the same as they were when I left as a kid. So the chaos of the streets, the fact that on any given day you will run across a cow, a bicycle, a motorcycle, a car, people walking willy-nilly, all over the streets. A woman threading marigolds on the corner, boys playing with marbles on the street. So there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of vibrancy. That never changes in India. I think what has changed is that there is a larger middle class than there ever used to be, which means that parents are able to send their kids to college in record numbers. So boys and girls have the opportunity now to go to college if they are part of that middle class. And when they get to go to college, they are studying for their BAs, for their MAs, and mostly for their PhDs also. So when you have an educated class, you have the opportunity for a lot of these women to have a voice, because they're able to say, look, I can make my own money, so let me make some of my own decisions. So they're able to say to their parents, hey, I just met somebody in college. Maybe they're not part of our community. Maybe, you don't know their parents, but I have fallen in love with them and I would really like to marry them. So they're able to say that a little bit more. They're also able to say to their parents, I'd like to finish my BA or my MA before I get married. Let me do that first. Let me get that under my belt. Or I want to start my career and establish myself before you, marry me off to somebody. So let me do that. Now, another thing that's happened is that a lot of these women of marriageable ages are selecting their own partners, so that in my mother's time, maybe 95% of the marriages were arranged. Now it's only 70 to 80% of the marriages that are arranged by the families. So there's a 30% margin now that is, oftentimes either selecting not to get married or to get married to somebody else whom they met in college or through friends or whatever. I think that another thing that's changed is that women are able to say, look, I just want one child. I don't want to have 2 or 3, because that is going to set me back in my career. And it's also going to set me back, just in what I want to do with my life. Whatever passions I want to realize will not be realized if I have too many children. So, they're able to put their foot down more on that. Now, one other interesting thing is that divorce rates are climbing, just as I think they did here in America in the 50s and 60s, because as more women are able to say, look, I'm financially independent and I don't really need to be in a unfulfilling relationship just because there's some financial stability there, more women are able to say, look, I'd rather be on my own. So, I think with every progressive change that comes, there's also something that happens to sort of counterbalance it.
Would you say some of those changes may have been influenced by America? Because I know in the book, for instance, you talk a little bit about the influence of Hollywood movies over to India and how it might have influenced Radha, for instance.
Yes, I think that definitely America, the UK, Australia, all of these Western influences play a large part in what is happening throughout the world. I think the world looks to the West as its major cultural influence. But I also know that over the last 10 years, a lot of people have been looking at Bollywood,
Yes.
as a cultural influence. In addition, K-pop, Korean pop music has also become a big influencer, and Turkish soap operas.
Oh, I've never heard of Turkish soap opera. I'm going to move on to the next question, which is from Carolyn from Pennsylvania. She says, what I will retain mainly from the Henna Artist is a quest for independence. All angles of the book seem to converge towards trying to break conventional shackles. whether it is political with the independence of India, social with a comment on the caste system, marriage, and feminism, and even the prison of our own ideals, which is symbolized by Lakshmi's house. Would you say our modern world has evolved in terms of acquiring independence, or do we keep on building new prisons?
What an excellent question. Wow, I think your audience is an extremely intellectual audience, and obviously
There's philosophers out there.
Yeah, they are really used to reading very thoughtfully. So I do think that we do free ourselves of certain cultural prisons and social prisons that we are a part of because of our social class, because of our education, because of the way we were raised. And I do think that we also keep building new prisons. So I wish that I could say that we could be completely independent of our entire lifestyles, of everything in our lives that shape us, but we can't be independent. And I think, you know, in the book, I'm also trying to say this of Lakshmi. Lakshmi is never completely independent either. You know, she is trying to work within the structure that she is given. She is trying to find out ways in which she can go around obstacles. And sometimes what that means is that she has to maybe create a new paradigm for herself to work within. And even that new paradigm is going to have restrictions and boundaries in it. So yeah, I think we're always creating new, you know, we're creating new lives for ourselves, but at the same time, I think we're also creating new restrictions and new boundaries for us to operate within.
I think it's a very human thing to do anyway. We need a structure, right? We need to be able to label things and follow a certain structure. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to live in society anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, it's true. We do need the structure. We need to have rules that allow us to be civilized with one another and, you know, to grow our economies and to educate our children and to live together, even though we are so very different in our religious preferences, our societal preferences, our gender preferences, and so on. We do need those rules in order to live together in harmony. Yes, it's true.
Yeah, I agree. Natalie from the UK, because we've got readers from all around the world since we're also based from the cruise ship. So Natalie says, would you draw parallels between yourself as a writer and a henna artist, where you use words instead of patterns to convey a message and make an impression?
Oh my gosh, another excellent question. Yeah, I've never had that one. And, you know, I've done over 200 book clubs and I've never had that question before. I think that's really excellent. What a good parallel you're making between a henna artist and the work that I'm doing. I do think that they are very similar. I am creating, just through my imagination, ways for women to realize their desires and their hopes through Lakshmi's henna painting. It is all coming from my imagination. And I think that's the way henna artists are. They are always creating something new for their clients and also creating something that their clients really want, whether it's a wedding henna, whether it's for a festival, whether it's just to create that cancer crown that henna artists are often doing for women who have lost their hair because of chemotherapy. Now henna artists are creating a crown that is filled with beautiful henna patterns so that the conversations around that woman's life can change. And when she goes to the grocery store, instead of having people say, oh gosh, you know, I'm so sorry about cancer, now they can say, wow, what a beautiful design. Where did that come from? Tell me all about it. So in the same way that I think readers now ask me, wow, the fig and the wasp that Lakshmi is painting on Parvati's feet, where did that come from? How did that happen? How did she even come up with that idea as a way to seduce a husband?
All right, we're going to move on to the last few questions. That's from Robin from New York, who's asking, have you been contacted by for film or TV adaptations of the book?
Yes, we immediately started getting contacted right after we made the New York Times bestseller list. And I think, you know, so much of that credit I have to give to both HarperCollins, who did a great job putting the book out there on all the bookstore shelves, but also to Reese Witherspoon, who really promoted the book for the month of May in 2020 and just pushed it and, you know, talked about it and loved it up. So we started getting calls from screen adaptation production companies. And I ended up going with one of the teams that is headed by Frida Pinto. It's the Miramax TV team. And Frida loved the book and she wanted to play Lakshmi. So she is signed up to do that, as well as executive produce the book. And then I get to be an executive producer on the series, which is going to be really fun. It's going to be an episodic series that they are billing as the Indian Downton Abbey.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, and what I love about that is, first of all, it's a bingeable series, and I am so addicted to bingeable series. Yeah, I mean, late at night, I always think, okay, I'm just going to watch the one episode, and I never stop at just one. I do 3 or 4 episodes. I can't help myself. And then, you know, it's going to be lush. I think the fact that they want it to be like Downton Abbey means that it's going to be lush. It's going to be gorgeous. People are going to be wearing gorgeous saris. We'll get to see the color of Jaipur. We'll get to see some of that beautiful Mughal architecture. Perhaps we'll even film in the palace, in the Jaipur Palace, which would be oh so wonderful. So I am so excited about it. And hopefully in 2022, they will actually start production, which would be fun.
That's fantastic news. I'm looking forward to watch it for sure. Great.
Yeah, me too. Me too. You know, that is one bingeable series I'm not going to miss.
Well, I hope not, since you're involved with it. You're also working, are you working on sequels? I think you told one of our readers that you were working on stories about Malik and Radha.
Yes. Now, Frenchie, if you had told me at the age of 30 or 40 or 50 that I was going to write 3 books, I would have laughed. Much less write 1 book. Like I'm just astounded that I even wrote the 1 book. But last year at some point, I was starting to work on another project altogether. And this was going to be about a painter living in India and half in Hungary. But Malik, one of the characters from the Henna Artist, kept knocking at my temple saying, I've got a story. I really want to tell a story. Will you please let me tell my story? So I finally pushed that one project aside and I started telling his story, and it came so easily, so quickly. And I just thought, oh, well, this is interesting. My agent said, let's send a couple of pages out to your editor at Mira Books, which is the division of HarperCollins that bought the book. And so she responded immediately and said, yes, we're going to buy this. And the Henna Artist, the actual hardcover, had not even come out yet. So that wasn't even in the stores, and they bought the second book, which my agent told me was very unusual. So that is now coming out next July, and it's called The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, and it is about Malik as a 20-year-old. So fun. And then while I was writing that, I realized that I had already written some of the future of Radha as an adult. Radha is 35 in the 3rd novel, and that will complete the trilogy. And she's 35, she's a perfumer, she's living in France, and she is going to be confronted with something that happened in the Henna Artist that she wanted to keep secret. So so I think it's really turned into like a family that lives within my imagination and will not let me go.
All these little voices in your head. At least you make good use of them. All right, last question for you. That's from me. Have you ever been on a cruise?
I have not been on a cruise yet. My mother loved cruises. She would go on cruises all the time. She loved it. She loved, you know, she played bridge, and there was always bridge clubs that she could find on cruises. And of course, she loved the food. She liked being able to, you know, have different samples of different food, no matter what tier she was on. And she loved walking around the deck. She just loved everything about it.
Now, if you could go on a cruise, where would you like to go?
I have really been dying to go to France. Now, this is because I actually do have to go to France to write this novel.
I can be your guide.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe along the Mediterranean, you know, if I can stop off in different places in the south of France and maybe around Italy and so on, I think I would definitely do that. And then I also want to get to Portugal at some point.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's also close. It's so easy to go from one place to another anyway. But
Yeah.
if you're going to base your story about Rada and her being a perfumer, you definitely have to go to Grasse, which is in south of France.
Absolutely. And I am waiting until the pandemic is over and the doors are open again. And I'm rushing out there as soon as I can.
Yeah. Have you ever read The Perfume by Patrick Suskind?
No, I haven't. But
Yeah.
that's something that's been recommended.
Right, you should. And it's based in Grasse. And he's basically, his job is a nose, what we call a nose, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating. Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah. And, you know, I've already started doing some research for it. And I have to tell you, the perfume industry is fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, there's also a Bulgarian rose that they use in almost every fragrance. And I can't wait to go out to Bulgaria just to see the rose harvest. That's what I want to see. So, you know, I mean, there are tons of flowers that go into, you know, real petals that go into the making of these perfumes. And I want to see that happen because in writing about a place or an activity, just like I did in the Henna Artist, when I was there in India, it becomes so much easier to write about India and to write about the people that I am encountering. Just like, you know, when I do the perfume, it's going to be so much easier if I can actually see the activities, if I can see what is being done in that industry, I can write about it in a much more compelling way. And doing that kind of research is one of the joys of writing. I love it.
Yeah. You get to embrace so many lives too, right? Well, thank you so much again, Alka. It's been wonderful to have you in this interview, and I really appreciate you taking the time to answer some of our guests' questions. It's been fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much, Frenchie, and thank you to Princess Cruises for making this possible. And thank you to your readers for being such passionate and ardent flippers of a page that they keep reading, that they keep absorbing interesting information from cultures around the world. And I think right now with the pandemic, when we cannot physically travel, this is one of the best ways to travel. It's
exactly.
Yeah, and it's an inexpensive way to travel, and it's a great way to learn about another culture without actually, you know, having to be there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's for sure. And like we said, you know, us who've got the travel bug, books have saved us during the pandemic for sure.
Yeah.
And for those of you who actually haven't read The Henna Artist, the book is still available for purchase online. And if you're interested to know a little bit more about Alka, then you can follow her on all those below links and social platforms. See, you can see that. There you go. But before we say goodbye, Alka, I've got a little favor to ask you. Would you mind telling us which book was voted to be the book club pick of November?
Yes, I am excited to announce, everybody, that Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed is going to be your next read. And it has just really taken the world by storm. I'm very excited that you guys are all going to read it. And I think Frenchie's going to tell you a little bit more about it.
Right, yes. So thank you again so much, Alka. I hope to see you again. We'll talk to you again in one of our next events. You never know when your next books are going to be released.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much. Happy traveling through the book.
So there you go. There you have it. Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I haven't read the book yet, but the premise is it's a story of a young Black woman who actually gets wrongly accused of kidnapping a white toddler that she was actually babysitting. So that's the story. Reviews are great. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation around it, but I hear that it's a fast and easy read, a page turner, and I am very looking forward to get into it, and I hope you do too. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next month. Bye.